welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Stashu, and I am joined by my good friend, the host of the Projection Booth podcast, Mr. Mike White.
Always a pleasure.
Likewise. And so you programmed this month. We're talking about Jackie Chan movies. The third Jackie Chan movie we're talking about. We're talking about Armour of God. Now, for those of you who are stateside, like we are, you might know the sequel to this film as Operation Condor. The original title for that film is Armour of God 2, or is it Armour of God Operation Condor? I believe it's just Operation Condor, or Armour of God 2.
Yeah, Operation Condor, right. Yes.
But we are talking about Armour of God.
Jackie Chan, the world's #1 action hero. Star of Operation Condor, Rumble in the Bronx, and Super Cop is back, on the loose, and in your face.
Hi.
It's pure Chan excitement, pure Chan adventure, and pure Chan dynamite.
Need a light?
From director and star Jackie Chan. Whoa! Operation Condor 2, The Armour of the Gods.
The original Armour of God film came out in 1986, directed by Jackie Chan and Eric Tsang.
Mm-hmm.
Written by Barry Wong and Edward Tang, stars everyone's favorite chop sake master Jackie Chan, Alan Tam, and I'm going to butcher her name if I don't get it right, and Lola Foreigner.
Yeah, because she's a foreigner, get it?
Whoa. And the film follows Asian Hawk, a.k.a. Jackie Chan, and his sidekick, played by Alan Tam, as they go around Europe trying to acquire the pieces of the Armour of God so that they can save his friend's girlfriend who's been kidnapped for the sole purpose of trying to get the Armour of God armor. So Mike, why did you pick this movie? And what do you think of Armour of God?
Well, I picked this movie. I saw this movie. I was very lucky to see this movie theatrically. It was in a science auditorium, but it was on film, and I got to see it, and it blew me away. And I just fell in love with this, and I fell in love with Jackie after seeing this movie. This might have been one of the first Jackie Chan films that I remember seeing. And just the quality of the stunts, the quality of the action, the quality of the comedy that goes with it as well. And I'll also say, I'll call it out right now. I love Raiders of the Lost Ark, so why not love a Raiders of the Lost Ark knockoff? So it really worked for me in that way as well.
Yeah, it is. It has that very much like I know that it's kind of aping, like you mentioned, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the sequel more so goes in that direction. I mean, even having Nazis. So this reminded me a little bit more of like James Bond. Mm-hmm. Oh God, what's the James Bond where they're in Greece? Oh God. Oh, it's got like Julian Glover in it. Oh, I forget which one that is.
I'm not sure.
That's what this reminds me of. It's like very like European, kind of old Europe, monasteries and monks. So a little Indiana Jones. This reminds me more of like a James Bond movie, a little bit. I mean, you've got like, so much so that he's got like the cool car, the gadgets, and he can like go out of his car on this little like kind of skateboard, like bodyboard thing. But it's such a fun movie. It really is. Again, you get this sense of fun with this movie, and it has action set pieces throughout, which was kind of a problem that Police Story didn't. But I think it's a fun movie, and I mean, you start the movie out with this kind of bizarre scene where Jackie is stealing the sword component of the Armour of God from what I am assuming are meant to be African tribesmen, though it clearly looks like the side of a mountain in China somewhere, with what I can only assume to be Asian actors painted brown.
Right.
It was a little obvious, let's just put it that way. And he's like just kind of making like baby talk noises at them as he's trying to steal it. But this movie has the stunt that almost killed Jackie Chan in the first 10 minutes.
Right.
And it's such an innocuous stunt that if you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't think anything of it.
Exactly. It wasn't like he was jumping off the side of a mountain or something.
Or jumping onto a pole that had Christmas lights on it.
Right. Or free falling onto a hot air balloon or something.
Right. He jumps from a wall to a tree with the hopes of getting from the tree to the other wall, and the tree limb snapped underneath his weight, and he fell and hit his head and fractured his skull in the process.
Yeah, from what I understand, he still has, like, you can still feel that indent in his head.
And it's crazy because, again, it's like really is a split-second stunt.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like, I guess the best thing I could compare it to is, and this is something I've been thinking about, like, who can we compare Jackie Chan to in today's cinema? And this might seem like a very odd comparison knowing what he used to be known for versus now, but, like, Tom Cruise is similar to Jackie Chan because Jackie was doing all this, like, crazy shit, right? And so is Tom Cruise now is doing, like, crazy shit as well.
Right. It's like he'll keep making those Mission Impossible movies until one of them kills him.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing, these like low altitude jumps. And I mean, similarly in Mission Impossible Fallout, which is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. But I mean, he broke his ankle in the filming of that film.
Right, and they kept the take.
Right, and they kept the take, but also it's extremely innocuous against the rest of the film where you've got Tom Cruise jumping out of the plane to do the low altitude drop. Also, Tom Cruise flying the fucking helicopter at the end of the movie. Yes, that's him flying it. And in this one scene, he breaks his ankle from jumping from one building to another. And that, in my mind, I drew the comparison to this film where you've got all kinds of crazy stunts, and the one stunt that almost killed Jackie Chan is him jumping from a tree to a wall.
Right.
Really? But it's a hell of an opening. I mean, I can only assume that Jackie Chan flew that plane off himself, because they show at the end of the film in kind of the blooper reel that's become essentially trademark Jackie Chan, they show him like flying off in the thing, or at least standing and like getting ready.
Right.
So, Jackie Chan really is, the Jackie Chan we're talking about in the 80s, he really is doing everything himself. Like we mentioned on the Police Story podcast, or like you mentioned more aptly, once he started doing American cinema later in the 90s, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, he went from auteur to, quote-unquote, just another actor. And then he couldn't even do all of his own stunts. They would have to get actual stuntmen. One, he was getting older, but two, the insurance prices were through the roof. And that's one of the things, too, that I don't think people realize when we talk about the Mission Impossible films, is that the insurance costs on your star are huge. How long did it take Cruise to recover from that broken ankle? It took a little while.
So long so that it completely tanked Justice League. And yeah, the only reason that movie failed was because Henry Cavill's mustache was CGI'd out, right, guys?
That's the only reason.
Yes. Had nothing to do with the fact that it was made by two directors who couldn't have given more shits than they did on screen. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I remember reading a quote from Danny Trejo where he talks about, I'm man enough to not do my own stunts because they pay somebody to do them for me.
Right.
It's like someone else's job. So, I do applaud Tom Cruise and, obviously Jackie Chan early on for kind of doing their own stunts, but it is it's not smart in a way, right?
Right.
Because you're putting the entire production at risk of what happened with Mission Impossible Fallout, where you have someone break their ankle during filming and it sets filming back 3 or 4 months.
Something like that. I mean, because when you have the main guy who's in almost every single scene running around, walking around, needing to ambulate, it's really hard to cover that up.
Yeah, and I don't know, have they said how long Jackie Chan's recovery was from this stunt? I can only imagine a long time.
Yeah, I'm not even sure.
Because they show him at the end of the movie, they do show the failed version of the stunt. And they show him on the stretcher, and it is scary. I mean, it's not something to be scoffed at, that it was kind of this just what seemed to be a routine stunt going wrong.
Well, the version I initially saw, I swear that at the end, when they come to that moment in the end credits, that light, jaunty Jackie Chan tune that they're playing over the end of it doesn't play over that part. It stops, and then we have no music over that part where they're showing Jackie being lifted up, and it's all kind of in slow-mo and being put onto, the ambulance and the stretcher and all those kind of things. So watching it again just over the weekend, I was like, wow, I really don't remember this music. I remember this being a very somber moment, which makes it even more scary. And then they kind of go back to the lighter stuff when they, the music picks up after that, and we're back to like the gag reel. But that being such a major injury, it was not really a gag, quote unquote.
Well, and let's be honest, though, if they stopped playing that music over the credits, it would be kind of a bummer because that music is amazing. Jackie Chan singing the outro credit theme music for his own film, boy, it's something.
Yeah, I really like the scene of The Losers, which is Jackie's band with him and Alan Tam in it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of, because when they talk about his character, he is a former musician who becomes an adventurer and treasure hunter.
He's everything to everyone. Right?
Sure, why not? Okay. It's kind of weird. It's one of those things where it's like, sure, why not? Who gives a shit? Like it's kind of bizarre. Like it's funny, but at the same time, it's like, okay. You don't even. Why does it matter? Why couldn't Alan Tam and Rosamund Kwan have just been his friends?
Right. Yeah, that was one of the many casualties of the Miramax cut when they released this. Because I don't know if people remember who are listening to this, but that's why we have a lot of these title muckeries, like where, oh God, I was talking to one guy on my Facebook, and he was just confusing the hell out of me because when they released these movies in the States, they released the second one first, called it Operation Condor, even though that was the subtitle. And then the second one they called the first one they called Operation Condor 2, Armour of God, even though that's the reverse of the first one. It was just weird what they did. And then also they just chopped a whole bunch of stuff out of these movies because Harvey Weinstein thought he knew better. He thought he knew what American audiences wanted. So whole swaths of stuff would just be left on the cutting room floor. They would rescore stuff so you don't get the Jackie Chan song at the end. And then, of course, they dub stuff. So, and when they're dubbing stuff, they're changing plot points along the way. So it was always a shit show when it came to those things. And that was one reason, too, why in the last movie I was saying don't watch the dubbed versions, because most of the time you're watching the Miramax cuts of these things. And we used to spell, because we were very clever in the day, we used to spell Miramax with an E at the end because they would axe all of these films all to hell. So the stuff with Jackie's band was gone. Jackie Has a Dream sequence, that's gone. The whole thing of May being brainwashed and trying to kill Jackie, that was gone out of there. There was just a whole bunch of stuff that was just sliced out of this movie.
And I think I can say with just a little bit of love in my heart that Harvey Weinstein go fuck himself. It's just straight up his fat, stupid ass.
Yeah, I hated Harvey Weinstein a lot earlier than other people did.
Yeah, he always struck me as a slovenly turd, which he was, and then it turns out not only was he a slovenly turd, he was also a creepy, power-abusing piece of shit. So, great. What we actually didn't mention about the thing with Jackie almost dying is that is when he took over directing of the film.
Okay.
Is after that, he took over from Eric Tsang when the accident happened. And the crazy thing about that scene with him jumping from the tree branch is he'd done it once already, but he didn't like the way it turned out. So he did it again the second time. And he fell and hit his head on a rock, and it forced a piece of bone into his brain. Right? Yeah. So it's like, Jackie Chan, just leave it the way it is. It's fine. Gotta go tempting fate. But he's still alive, he's still making movies, and he finished this movie, and this movie, through and through, is a lot of fun. It really is. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and, we talked a little bit, I think when we talked on the Dragons Forever episode, we were talking about the use of white people in these movies. Sorry, I had to clear my throat.
Sure. Go ahead.
And this movie has a ton of white people in here. And this is kind of doing what I was saying that some other Jackie movies do, which is to make the white people the villains, which is absolutely fine by me. And one of the biggest reasons that white people are villains in these movies is because of cultural appropriation and taking artifacts. So this whole thing of Jackie stealing the armor of God, it's a little bit of like payback for people that came to China and stole stuff from China. So it's kind of a nice thing. You'll see that again if you watch like Drunken Master 2. I think there's a whole thing in there where people are coming in and stealing artifacts from China. So this is kind of a little bit of a reversal of that, or like trying to get stuff back to our country kind of a thing. So again, depending on which version you watch, it could be get this back for China. It could be you're a treasure hunter. It could be, help out, Lola, these kind of things, or May. So yeah, there's different motivations, but a lot of that comes back to, the perceptions that China had as far as people coming over and just taking stuff from their land.
I'll tell you what, though, as much as I did like this movie, it does suffer a little bit from, I don't know what we call it, Hong Kong action movie syndrome, where the middle of the movie, it starts trying to overcomplicate the plot. And Lorelai is like poisoned by the monks and she's being brainwashed by them, but it's not really clear how. It's like, just don't overthink it. You don't have to. These movies don't need to be like wrought with all sorts of kind of bogus shit, because the whole thing with her being poisoned and brainwashed makes no sense.
Yeah, I said May was brainwashed earlier. I did mean Lorelai. I'm sorry.
But I mean, I knew what you meant. But to be fair, like there may have been a scene where she got brainwashed too, for all I know. But it's like it makes no sense in the context of the film, because it's like a supernatural thing, maybe like not like supernatural, but kind of. And it's like kind of hinted at that the armor of God may be like a supernatural aspect to it, a la Indiana Jones and like the Ark or the Holy Grail or the Shankara stones. But you never see that in this movie, which I think was a big missed opportunity. And there's this weird thing where she's poisoned and brainwashed, and all I could think was, God, why did they have to go and do something goofy again? Like in Police Story, where they have this like double twist, or in Dragons Forever, where there's like a double twist thing. It's like, it doesn't need it.
Yeah, and for me, that was almost like when Indy was brainwashed in Temple of Doom, and it's like, oh, what can we do to get her out of this? But then at the same time, to your point, it really does that, mistaken identity kind of a thing that happens in a lot of these movies. We talked in Dragons Forever about Sammo and Yuen Bion not knowing that they were both working for Jackie, so they are hating each other and hitting each other. And then in the last one with Police Story, the whole thing with May and the other is Selena, and how they, one thinks that one is the mistress, etc. And it just every single
Jackie
one of these
being framed for murder, same thing.
Exactly. Every single one of these has to have those weird mistaken identity comedy beats. It's almost like they were infected by like Three's Company or something.
Well, and the thing is this movie has inherent comedy in what Jackie is doing, because he really is doing like an 80s version of Chop Socky. And it doesn't need like the plot itself doesn't need like comedy beats. His like physical comedy within his kung fu practice is like enough as it is.
Right. Oh, and the fights that he ends up having, especially the fights with the monks are really, really good, because all of these monks, there's like, I would say even that there's the one very particular monk that I like the most, who's taller and bald with the big gray mustache. Even he can throw some punches, but then you have a lot of guys where, especially when you see the outtakes, it's like, oh yeah, that guy's, somebody else just wearing a wig, just like all the one stunt man, like playing a lot of different guys, but they can really do it. And then I know too, like if you watch the scene with the Amazons, and the scene with the Amazons is what really sold me on this, but if you watch that scene with the Amazons, it's like there's a lot of times where that is not a woman, throwing those punches and kicks and stuff, but I buy into it, man. I'll take it and just pretend that those are these four statuesque black women that are just going after Jackie and doing their best to try to stomp on his nuts.
Yeah, I liked the fight with the Amazons at the end of the film. It's pretty crazy. All of a sudden, this monastery has like 4 female assassins.
All wearing these identical black bustiers.
With high-heeled shoes. end up becoming their weakness.
Except for when the one realizes and tiptoes across the boards.
Right? And it's so much fun, but the climax of this movie is not great.
No.
It's actually so bad that it ends up, in my mind, hurting the overall quality of the film. Because you have this fight with the assassins, and then the end of the film, it feels just kind of like a wet fart. It's like that's it. Just like da-da-da-da-da-da. Like nothing. He just lights dynamite and throws it. The end.
It so reminds me of the end of like Austin Powers, where it's just like they end up in a raft and she's like, what are we doing out here? He's like, oh, all my movies end on a boat, and it's like, which was very James Bond, and that's why he was doing it. Because with this one, yeah, he throws the dynamite, he goes out, he's on the side of a mountain, he looks out, and then we cut to somewhere, who knows where this is, but there's a balloon, hot air balloon, flying somewhere. He base jumps.
Not anywhere near where he is.
Nowhere near.
It is clearly far away.
And the way that they're shooting the mountain that he's on, it looks like it's about 50 feet high. So when he base jumps off of it, it's just like, he's going to die. And then they cut to him somewhere else, flying through the air. And it's like, wow, there is no connection between those. I mean, the Kuleshov effect can only take you so far,
Yeah, the end of the movie with the hot air balloon thing is real dumb.
Yeah.
That's the only word I can use to describe it is it's just so dumb. And it feels rushed.
Do we even see them get in that hot air balloon? Because it just feels like it shows up out of nowhere.
He tells her, he's like, this is what we're going to do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Whatever. It's so stupid. Like he's like, this is what we're going to do. And then it cuts to a scene of him like riding his motorcycle.
Right.
And I was like, what did I fucking miss something? Did Harvey fucking take an axe to this? It feels like there's a scene missing where he tells her their idea because, yeah, like you said, all of a sudden, Alan and Lorelai, who he rescued in this climax of the film, are in a hot air balloon with May. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? From where? Why? I mean, I guess it was because, I guess Jackie wanted to do a base jumping finale, but it's so dorky.
It is completely dorky.
And it's a bummer because the movie really is a lot of fun. And everything about this movie is really fun, but the end of the movie is it's so dumb.
But at times, that's what makes it endearing to me. Is just that it is so stupid.
I would actually agree. I would agree. It at the end it goes full like big dumb action movie.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's take a break and we'll finish up talking about Armour of God on the other side of the break.
Have a hunger for horror? A yen for yelp yarns? Then give your blood-curdled bones a boon and tune in to Chronicles from the Crypt. Join sordid slime slingers Casualty Chris and Father Malone as they take on HBO's groundbreaking television series Tales from the Crypt. Here's what the rotting and rancid rabble are saying about Chronicles from the Crypt. Tune in to Chronicles from the Crypt. You have nothing to lose except your life.
Who is Carl Kolchak?
He's a reporter.
Now that is news, Vincenzo. News! And we are a newspaper. We are supposed to print news, not suppress it.
With the INS.
What's an INS?
Independent news service, sir. Founded in 1904 by Enrico Paluzzi.
Who seems to have a nose for the strange and unusual.
Well, last year in Las Vegas, I uncovered a series of murders that turned out to have been committed by a vampire.
And what is the Kolchak Tapes?
It's a podcast.
All about Carl Kolchak.
What's a Kolchak?
The Night Stalker.
And where can you get it?
On iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at www.kolchaktapes.com.
As foolish a game as any that Gory the Ghoul could make up.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
Week after week, I'm mesmerized by the focus given great films and questionable films alike. But every episode is a learning and entertaining experience.
This is hands down the best movie podcast. They cover so many different genres across so many years, from obscure movies to blockbusters.
If there's only one podcast about movies and cinema that you listen to, make it this one.
Projection Booth Podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
In 1985, a curious phenomenon occurred. The Twilight Zone returned to television, featuring all new tales of mystery and imagination from the minds of Ray Bradbury, Harlan Ellison, George R.R. Martin, and Stephen King. Dreams for Sale, the Twilight Zone 85 podcast looks back at that land of shadow and substance and re-examines the groundbreaking successor to Rod Serling's legacy. Featuring new interviews with the show's creators and cast, Dreams for Sale can be found on iTunes and at twilightzone85.com. Dreams for Sale. We'll be waiting for you in the Twilight Zone.
Let's finish up talking about Armour of God. So we talked a little bit about the hot air balloon. Jackie Chan actually did base jump. He landed on top of the balloon, but he skydived out of an airplane to do it.
Okay.
So just why it looks so weird is because, when you said he's 50 feet off the air in that cliff that he's standing on, that looks like it's on the back lot somewhere.
Right?
It looks so cheap. And I'm sitting there to myself thinking, like, what the fuck are they thinking?
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of cool stunts. There's a lot of cool action. There's the thing with Jackie's car that like transforms and he like him and Alan sketch out of it in this little like boogie board thing on the ground. It's a lot of fun. It's a good movie and I like it a lot. But the end of the movie really is just kind of, it feels like they didn't know how to end it. So there were like two different endings. Right. If it had been me, I would have had him like using the Armour of God sword to do something.
That would have been cool.
Right, like have the Armour of God come into play somehow.
Right.
Indiana Jones style, because like the thing you're searching for in the Indiana Jones movies always comes into the climax in some form or fashion.
Right. Yeah, the Grail shows up or the Crystal Skull or whatever, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about on Crystal Skull. Is that a movie is that like a fan film?
Or the actual Temple of the Doom, just shows up.
The Doom.
The whole temple just appears. Yes.
I love Temple of Doom. God, it's my favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Kali Ma Shakti Day.
Yeah, dude. You betrayed Shiva. It's Temple of Doom, yes, it hasn't aged well.
Oh, yeah. It's very politically incorrect.
But, like, at the same time, there's something endearing about how stupid it is.
Yeah.
Kind of like Armour of God, like with the end of this movie, like a bunch of Amazons fighting Jackie Chan and they can't fight him because of their high heels. Hasn't aged well either.
Right.
But it's like endearingly stupid. And if you're getting like pissed about that, fuck you.
Yeah.
It's there's more shit to get mad about, but this ain't it.
Him punching the one woman in the breasts and then like Sally and she adjusts the breasts before going after him again.
Excuse me, sir. Sally is offensive.
But I swear that's what he says. Pretty
much. And it's also the version I watched was Jackie dubbed himself.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
But yeah, it's like that. Indiana Jones, the first one hasn't aged well because, killing all the Muslims, all the guys in the turbans, they're the bad guys.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Wow. But, Temple of Doom hasn't aged well. But like a lot of these movies that are like taking their influences from pulp serials.
Right.
Like, that's what that was. So if you don't like the source material, you're a fucking idiot to begin with.
I'm fine with Indiana Jones killing those Muslim people. If they are Muslim, I'm not even sure. But I'm fine with him killing them because they were working for the Nazis. So
exactly. And exactly. They had sided with the Nazis, so they made their bed, and Indiana Jones is going to shoot them right into it.
Right.
He is going to bury you fucking swordsman bastard. Still, I think one of the best pieces of like action comedy you'll ever see in a movie is that swordsman scene from Raiders. And I was kind of surprised with this movie kind of aping Raiders a little bit that they didn't have a similar scene.
Right.
But I'm not sure that's worth replicating because it's so well known.
Exactly.
But yeah, and from what I read, Armour of God 2 kind of goes more in the Indiana Jones direction. Mm-hmm. Which sounds fun. So, compared to this one, which is kind of James Bond meets Indiana Jones. The Indiana Jones stuff kind of gets lost, I would say, later in the film.
Oh, yeah.
But at the beginning, it's very much like, it's almost the beginning scene of Raiders with Jackie Chan.
I've only seen Operation Condor once that I can remember, but I remember liking it. And it starts off with a very similar scene. It's got a lot of the same beats. Rather than him sliding down a mountain like however he's doing it in Armour of God.
Instead, on his ass, sir. Right. Just on his ass.
Well, it seems like they're riding like little sleds or something. And in that one, in the second one, he goes into a big, like a hamster ball, like a big padded ball, and goes down the mountain in that. And then there's, I can't remember if that's the one that has him like wearing these skates on his arms, and he's like going down a really tall hill, and he's skating, and then he has the skates on his arms, so he's like sliding down. It's really kind of crazy, but that was another one, just for the record. That was another problem with Miramax, too, is this movie came out in 91, and, you know, you or I, we could find a copy of that without too much problems, but as far as American audiences, they didn't see it until 97, and the 97 version that Miramax or Dimension threw out there, 15 minutes shorter, redubbed, so fuck you again. It was just like, so don't watch these American versions of these movies because they're going to be chopped to hell.
And also I'm assuming the American version, he's also called Asian Condor, not Asian Hawk.
He's probably called Jackie.
Well, that's what he's called in the first one as well. Right. It's Asian Condor doesn't have the same ring to it that Asian Hawk does.
No, because it
Asian
sounds like
Condor
Tony
makes me
Hawk.
think of Sammo Hung.
Yeah.
Asian Condor, me big and strong with big wingspan. Asian Hawk is like small and agile, but like I think Sammo Hung is the Asian Condor. Like,
yeah.
You know, but fucking Jackie Chan, Asian Condor? Pff, no, come on. Asian Hawk, get it right.
And then one day I was watching TV and I'm watching this movie, this Jackie Chan movie, just turned it on cable, and I'm watching it and I'm just like, wow, this seems really familiar. What is this movie? And they're treasure hunting and doing all this stuff. And then they're in the jungle and they find this like pirate ship in the jungle or something. I'm just like, wow, this what is this movie? This seems very familiar. And then finally I realize I'm watching the third Armour of God movie. I had no idea that this even existed. So finally, after doing some research, I found that what they called in China CZ12, which is Chinese Zodiac 2012, was a reboot of Armour of God. So he played Asian Hawk or Asian Condor, if you prefer, a third time. So I had no idea.
That's the movie with the suit that you were talking about.
That's the one with the suit? Okay.
With the skate suit.
All right.
Yeah. What's the Jackie Chan movie where he runs down the side of the building?
Oh.
Who Am I?
I think that was Who Am I?
Okay, because that movie is pretty bad except for that one scene.
Yeah, and that's the one that's got the really tall white guy who's beating the shit out of him at one point, if memory serves. Right. And I like that guy a lot.
Yeah, that's the and like I'm not being a dick here, and like everybody knows me, I am a dick about a lot of stuff, but a lot of Jackie Chan's movies run together.
Oh yeah. Well, especially when you start to watch them dubbed or, like, and then I'll still be like, okay, what's the one where this happens? Or because, it's like Steven Seagal films. It's like Jean-Claude Van Damme films. A lot of times you know them by their set pieces. And it's like, okay, what's the one where this happens?
What's the Seagal movie where he fights the dudes in the bar with the pool ball in the sock? Because that's the only one worth watching.
Is that
Out for Justice?
I thought that was something something about fire.
That's Fire Down Below. Right? That's the one where he's the EPA agent.
Okay, yeah, I only really watch the one where he's on the ship under siege.
Ah, okay. Yeah, Steven Seagal is pretty. It's like that's the thing. Unlike Arnold, who his movies are all very stand out, and I think, and I would wager a guess, and let me know what you think about this. I would wager a guess it's because Arnold was always working in a genre space. Mm-hmm. He was working in like sci-fi or sci-fi action or horror in End of Days' case, which that movie is fucking awful, but it has its moments. But you remember that movie because it's Arnold fighting the devil, or Arnold, in Total Recall, fighting on Mars, or Arnold as a robot. So it's like a genre thing. But with Jackie Chan, it's like he's kind of always playing himself. He's kind of always something. He's like an everyman, and there's a he's confused for somebody else, or he's just doing his job. They kind of all run together.
Right. Yeah. With these, I mean, I think that's also why I chose the movies that I chose, is that you get a lot of differences as far as like movies that are set in the 1920s, movies that are set in other countries. I think Dragons Forever is the one that's the closest to like Police Story, but then with something like this, it's the exotic locales that kind of help set it apart. Or with Project A, it's being set in the old-timey days that helps set it apart. But yeah, a lot of the movies that are set in present day where he is kind of the same character, usually a down-on-his-luck cop, yeah, those things are going to really blend together.
Yeah, and Who Am I is the one where he fights on top of the building.
Okay.
And that's one where he plays Jackie Chan. He plays Jackie Chan in that movie. The actual, just his name is Jackie Chan.
Yeah, once he gets into that period of his career, I'm just like, this is really tough to keep track of. I mean, that's around the time, if memory serves, as the Tuxedo, is that right?
Yeah, that was 2002. Oh my God, the Tuxedo. Why did you have to bring that movie?
I'm sorry.
Is that the one where it's almost like Iron Man? Where he's like, the tuxedo has like a special powers or something?
Yeah, but I was reminded more of it was Pink Panther with Steve Martin. I was reminded more of that film.
What about The Medallion?
Oh, wow. I don't even remember that one.
The one with Claire Forlani, a.k.a. not Jason Lee, what's his name? From Mallrats, the girl that breaks up with the main character at the end of the beginning of the movie. It's like her and Jackie Chan.
Wow.
God, right? What in D hell?
Yeah.
Or Around the World in 80 Days.
Well, speaking of Arnold.
Yeah, or the Twins Effect. I mean, that's the thing, like, Jackie Chan, there's so many movies that we as Westerners probably shouldn't see, but aren't gonna be over here for us to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that one called? It's like him and Jet Li, like The Forbidden Kingdom.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like, that, like, I've never seen it, and like you don't hear anyone talking about it, but it's like Jackie and Jet Li in the same movie,
right?
So it's just, like you said, like once you hit like 98, it's where Jackie Chan it's where we start seeing diminishing returns,
which is a shame because that's when he is firmly in U.S. territory. That's like the thing that he was trying to do with his career for a long time. He finally gets that mark of success, especially with something like a Rush Hour. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what kind of movies are you going to be offered over here? Not that many good ones. You're going to have to go back home to make the stuff that you really want to make. And the stuff that you make over here is going to be fucking the Tuxedo.
Well, and here's the thing. I know we've been shitting on Rush Hour a lot. Rush Hour is not terrible.
No, it's not.
It's just a stupid movie that's like, it's like when comparison, I love the CD Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo. I think every single track on that CD or vinyl is absolutely perfect. But if you go and buy the best of Oingo Boingo, you're going to get all sorts of other songs from their other albums. That's what Rush Hour is. It's like the best of Jackie Chan. For American audiences. But you don't get to see stuff like the Police Story intro with the shanty town, or some of the crazy stuff from Armour of God or Dragons Forever. It's like kind of like a melange of those things, and it's okay, but it's also like lowest common denominator stupid shit for Western audiences to laugh at, like, oh, he's Chinese, so he doesn't know what the N-word means.
Right.
Yeah, that hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen The Foreigner, but I've heard that it was good.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet either.
But I heard it was also, casting against type for Jackie Chan, which, again, like you said in our Police Story podcast, that doesn't necessarily work well.
Exactly. And yeah, I think it was Crime Story was the one where it was very serious. And then City Hunter was the one I was trying to think of, where it was more Japanese influence, and it was actually based on a manga. So that also didn't do very well either. That one, I think, has a whole scene where he suddenly goes into like a Street Fighter 2 arcade game.
Oh my God, that movie is so nuts.
It is. Yeah, it's crazy. Does he play Chun-Li in that?
Yep, he plays all of them. I think he plays Chun-Li. I know he plays, E. Honda.
E. Honda, yes. Yeah. Edmund himself.
I know he plays Chun-Li for sure. But like, I think if that's the movie we're thinking of, I know he does in something, but like there's like GIFs online of Jackie Chan as the Street Fighter characters, and it's so goofy. But at the same time, playing against type.
Yeah. And that majorly failed.
Yeah. So back to Armour of God. After our little Jackie Chan tangent, what would you give Armour of God?
Again, I would give Armour of God a 4 out of 5. I mean, I was telling you this afternoon, like right now I'm looking at the Armour of God poster. I mean, it is one of my favorite films. I don't have very many posters up in my podcast area, but that's one of them. So it definitely holds a special place in my heart.
Well, to be fair, there's probably not a lot of room for posters in your podcast area with all those hooks and chains.
That's true. Jesus wept.
Yeah, it's true. I would give Armour of God, I would give it a 4 out of 5 as well. I mean, again, the end, the climax, take the climax from Police Story, put it in Armour of God, and I think you've got a 5 out of 5. But the hot air balloon thing is... boy, it's really special. And then the thing with the dynamite is just kind of dorky. And, it's kind of funny to see him, running around with the vest of TNT on kind of on fire and throwing it and all that. But it's kind of a hollow climax. And that's kind of my only issue with it, because everything else is a lot of fun. So yeah, 4 out of 5. Where can people find you, Mike?
They can find me over at the Projection Booth Podcast, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com.
And you can find me over on Twitter at Culture Stash. Mike and I do a Kolchak the Night Stalker podcast. If you want to check that out, head on over to thekolchaktapes.com. We also do a Twilight Zone 1985 podcast. Head on over to Twilight Zone 85 for that one. And my good buddy Father Malone and I do a Tales from the Crypt podcast. That one is over at chroniclesfromthecrypt.com. Crom laughs at your forwards.
Crom laughs at your podcast.
Crom laughs at Jason Momoa attempting to be Conan. You can find that one over at chroniclesftc.com. Big thanks, as always, to Eric for the intro. Oh, I completely missed my plug for this podcast. And if you want to find out more about this podcast, head on over to culturecast.com, where you can find out more about this episode and our backlog of almost 300 episodes, closing in very quickly on that number. You'll find links over to iTunes where you can rate and review the show to help other movie fans find our podcast, or movie haters, possibly in my case. And you'll find links over to Patreon where you can kick a couple dollars our way. Big thanks, as always, to Eric for the intro-outro music, and to Mike for not only programming this month, but joining me for 3 of 3 Jackie Chan movies so far.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
And we'll catch you on the next Culture Cast.
Really?